Hello everyone, just a quick update before the video starts. This is the first episode of the Beat That Boss cast I will be hosting with my good friend Travis over at beatthatboss.blogspot.com. If you want to check out his blog, I will leave a link in the description. We will be recording the podcast monthly, at least for now, so I hope you enjoy listening to us talk about random things. I'll be starting my next video shortly after this one is uploaded, so stay tuned for that, but for now, enjoy. Okay, so Uh, I guess this is the first episode of we're calling it the Beat That Boss cast, right? Or Beat That Boss podcast, whatever it is.
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So this is episode one of the Beat That Boss cast with your hosts. Fuck yeah! I'm having a stroke. Help.
You want me to start it out, buddy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright.
What a
Welcome to
rollicking
the
good
first.
start.
That's all good, man. It's all good. Welcome to the first edition of the Beat That Boss Cast. Today, we're going to talk about some video games. And the two hosts you got today are myself, Travis, and the illustrious Daniel. And so, Daniel's go ahead and get us started with talking about them video games.
Okay, well, I have recently been playing that Hades. It's a
Oh,
it's a roguelike from Supergiant Games. They did the games like Transistor, Bastion, and Pyre, and
okay.
it's a roguelike set in the Greek mythos. And I gotta tell you, man, it's fucking excellent. I
Nice,
mean,
dude.
I've been
I've heard a little bit about that going on. I haven't really looked into it myself, but I've heard a lot of people saying that it's really good.
I've been playing it literally nightly since this 1.0 release. Like I got it
Nice.
a few months ago when it was doing early access on Steam. I got it after I think the Hera update,
Okay.
and I was like, yeah, this is some stuff here. And then once it released, it got released on Switch. I bought it there so I could play on my bed without having to, be in my chair all the time because it gets fucking hot in this room. But
Sure.
man, I like it's so fucking good. I'm actually working on a video on it. I should have it done by hopefully this week, but
Nice.
it
So in that
depends.
game, do you like make a build, like make a character and go through, or
So
is it like a set character?
you have a second. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, who after an
All right.
altercation with his father decides to leave the pit of Tartarus. And the objective of the game is to leave, get to the surface, and get out of Tartarus. And
Okay.
you
Okay.
and through the game, you'll have people helping you from within the hub, which is the lounge area, as well as the other gods by granting you boons to help you, vary up your playstyle. You have like 5 weapons, but you start with one. Or you have six. You have
Okay.
six. You have six. You have 6 weapons. You start with the first one. You can unlock them as you progress through the game. And the thing that surprised me the most, I think, out of all the roguelikes I play, like Risk of Rain, Rogue Legacy, Binding of Isaac, the amount of story and voice acting in this is absurd.
Yeah. Honestly, whenever I think of a roguelike, I don't think, oh, that's gonna have a great story.
Dude, the first boss encounter when you finish the first area, I've beaten that fight like 35 times out of my 39 runs. Every single time I have not encountered a a duplicate like audio record or thing. God,
Oh, really?
it's they have every conceivable type of voice line for whatever happens. I died to a Gorgon head, and in the hub area there is a friendly Gorgon named Dusa who's amazing, and
Okay.
and she remarks on the fact that one of her sisters killed you.
I actually love when games have those little details where like something that you don't think can be related to anything actually shows up later, even if it's just a small voice line. I love
It's
when that
super
shit happens.
good. It's super
Yeah.
good. And the craziest thing about it too is also just the fact that, it has a goddamn affinity system like Persona and Fire Emblem Three Houses, where
Oh,
you
okay.
where you you rank up your affinity with this character by talking to them and giving them an item called Nectar, which you can earn through your runs. And as you rank up with them, the first time you give them Nectar, they'll give you an artifact using on your run. But after that, they won't give you anything else. But as you rank up with them, you'll learn more about them, learn more about their history and about that character, like Achilles or Aphrodite or Dionysus.
Okay.
And apparently, if you get them to max, there is something else you can unlock, but I don't know about that yet because I haven't gotten there yet. Because it is. It is hard to actually rank them up. It's hard to get nectar.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh shit, man, that sounds like a cool one, dude. Is that only on PC or is
It's
that
on
on console too?
PlayStation. That's the place. No, it's on PC and Switch as of right now. I don't know if it's coming to the other consoles. I hope it does. It wouldn't
Okay.
surprise me. All their games are on every console, so so they probably will eventually. It might be because this is here's the thing. It's not the full team that actually worked on it. It was a small team within Supergiant Games that worked on this as like a side
Oh, okay.
project,
Side project? That
which
seems
is
nice.
nutty to me considering the amount of quality it has.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's
And
cool, man. I'll have to check that out if I ever get an opportunity to do so. I've actually, I literally today, before we got on today, I beat the new Borderlands DLC.
the Creek one?
Yeah, the Krieg and the Fantastic Fustercluck.
Ooh.
And yeah, so I beat that one. And yeah, it was really good. It was, I mean, all of their DLCs for Borderlands have been good so far. This one is great. It's got some weird stuff that happens. There's some really, basically, what they did is that in a lot of the other DLCs, right, there's like a big hub world, and then like you have missions that sprout out from there. This one does not have that. It has like a very small hub world, and then it has three really huge areas, and then a final encounter after all of that. And all of the areas are really they're really pretty neat. I got to tell you, as long as I've been playing video games, I've never been chased down by a train as a villain, and
Are
that
you
was
serious?
yeah, dude. One of the villains is literally the train, and it's like it like spawns out of portals and tries to hit you, and is throughout the areas, and it can hit enemies too. So sometimes you'll just be like fighting some enemies, and all of a sudden they'll just get rammed by a train that came out of nowhere. It's that area in particular was really sweet.
Yeah, I still gotta beat the third one before I buy the next one. I mean, I still haven't beaten Neo 2, and I have the DLC for that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I think those two should definitely take precedence.
but
In
Baldur's
terms
Gate
of
3 though.
in terms of the different like ratings I would give, I think this one I have to get a little bit more into like the weapons and stuff, but I would say that the last DLC that we had was definitely the best one they've done. That one was amazing. And then I would probably put the other two just slightly above this one, just because there's not quite as much in this one. I would say this
Hmm.
one's probably got hit by the pandemic pretty hard because there's just not.
Right.
There's like three major areas and three side quests that are big. There's like little tiny side quests that don't really count, but there's like three major side quests too, and that's basically it, and a big boss at the end, which is cool. But it did feel a little bit like kind of it didn't have as quite as much stuff in it.
Okay. Would you say it was worth the $15?
Yeah, I think so. I think in particular, if people are interested in the Krieg in general, like the character of Krieg, this is terrific. Even the whole story, even if you're not that interested in it, it's pretty entertaining, and it's also got like some emotional weight to it behind a lot of this stuff. So if you want to sit down and just play it by yourself, I would recommend that because a lot of the like catharsis that he gets out of the whole experience is better if you feel it all the way through, you know. So I think
Right.
that it was, but again, it's sort of because I care about Krieg and I care about the world and stuff. If you're just looking to go in guns blazing, it's great with friends. But if you don't care about the story and you don't got friends to play with, then I definitely, if you haven't picked up the other DLCs, pick up them first and then pick up this one last. This one hasn't had. This one I don't think would be quite as interesting for like solo players without too much stake in the lore.
That's good to know. Because, like I said, I just haven't been into Borderlands movies. Why I haven't even bothered to finish them? I mean, hell, I have all the Yakuza games still haven't beaten them. Fucking backlog's
No,
piling up, man. It's
I
getting
know,
real.
man.
It's getting dire. It's getting a little dire over here.
Yeah, you're gonna have to start powering through them again. As I said, if you wanted to do that third DLC, man, I'm always down. That one is awesome.
I'm probably down,
So
honestly, because especially because I'm gonna be even less time now. I'm actually starting to work on my channel. Speaking of, I have a new channel called Crab Named Heller.
yeah,
So,
dude. By the way, yeah, Gio told me that last night. That name is terrific.
dude, so I was
I
talking
love it.
about this with my FF14 free company like a few weeks ago, and one of the team leaders ran. So she was like, "You should just make a channel called a Crab Named Heller," and I'm like, "That's actually really fucking good. I'm actually going to use that. Like it's like that's genuinely a really good name."
Yeah, it was. It's entertaining. It's memorable. It's good. It's good.
Especially since I
Uh,
rebranded myself, I decided to go with the crab stuff because also, it makes editing videos much easier having an avatar to just focus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good name. Yeah, that would be a channel that we would like talk about, right? Like,
Yeah,
whenever we talk about like reviews, we're never talking like, oh yeah, this person's reviews are really good. You know, we're always saying something like, ACG, Easy Allies, people with names, and a crab named Heller, I think, fits that bill.
yeah, exactly. Plus, I also made it just in case I want to make other types of videos that aren't directly related with the Hell reviews. Like, I decided I'm not going to abandon Hell reviews. I'm just going to make it a more secondary channel to a crab named Heller because it's just
Okay.
because I can still put like reviews up there or archives and start working on a crab named Heller. 'Cause there's some videos I want to cover about certain people who think that Nintendo Switch is the superior gaming platform, which I just find.
Hey,
Mm,
it's mobile-ish.
nah, dude. You don't understand. This dude called Game Pass a scam, but praised Nintendo Online for allowing him to play Star Fox. He
I
also
mean, to each his own, I guess. If
he
he's
also
like,
stated the Doom Eternal was complete shit, and that every Nintendo game is better than Death Stranding combined.
listen, man, maybe he just got a Star Fox body pillow that he wants to,
He looks like
reassure
he
at night.
would have a body pillow. That's the thing. He totally looks like that.
Gee.
Anyway, but
All
apart
right,
from
man.
that,
Well, yeah, let's dive into the main topic of the evening, or one of the things we're going to be covering, which I think you came up with or you heard about, and I think that was a really good idea. Where it's our 10 out of 10 games of this past generation. Doesn't matter the platform, doesn't matter anything else. The 4 games that you think that you're going to remember or you believe are a 10 out of 10. And you want to do them one by one? Like, I'll say one, you say one, you say one? What do you think?
yeah, that sounds good. Because especially when it could be time, because I'm still coming up with the other two. I'm really racking my brain around a couple. Because I keep
No
thinking, oh,
worries.
maybe this game. Oh, but wait, but then there's this game. Like so
Oh,
let's
it's
get the
tough.
first.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's
You'll
really
see.
hard.
Like, I'll go ahead and I'll show you my method just with my first pick. So I've got some pretty obvious picks or some picks that people are definitely going to think about or whatever. And before we get into the actual picks, like let me rattle off some honorable mentions here. And the quality of these honorable mentions should show, I had a tough time coming up with this fourth, but the honorable mentions that I have are like Horizon Zero Dawn, incredible game. Resident Evil 2 Remaster, incredible game. Sekiro, I love Sekiro. Dark Souls 3, I love Dark Souls 3. All these games, Shadow of the Colossus, these are the kind of games that I absolutely love and I will love forever. But when I was thinking about like my fourth pick, because I got my other 3 kind of locked in, I was thinking about my fourth pick. I was thinking about a pick that not a lot of people may have played or something that kind of got under the radar, but that I absolutely loved and I think is one of the most underrepresented games of the generation. And my number 4 pick is actually going to be Prey. I had an absolute joy of a
Interesting.
time. Yeah, I had an absolute joy of a time playing Prey. I love the entire idea, like the whole BioShock rhythm where you go through like a living, breathing sort of world that feels like it's been lived in, and it's got interesting lore, it's got interesting notes. Each environment feels like it's been hand put together. It's like the whole post-it note room, the entire room of
Yeah,
post-it notes. I still remember that. That was terrific.
I
I
didn't
still
even
remember the
think about Prey.
yeah. That's one of those. See, it's one of those games that I feel like didn't quite get the representation that I think it deserved. Now, in terms of being a 10 out of 10, there are little tiny issues with it, just like with all these games. But I think that the story, the gameplay, like the leveling system, the enemies, the mimics, which scared the living hell out of me for like the first 6 hours of playing that game, like all of those really do combine to bring that up a level. And I gotta say, I just loved Prey.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Every time I go back to play it, I'm still a little wary about the mimics. They still
I
get me
know, right?
sometimes.
Every coffee cup, I'm like, is that you? No, it's not you. Okay, it's good. It's good.
Fucking whip that fucking wrench everywhere you go, hoping to hit something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it gets even more terrifying when you know there's one in the room, but then it disappeared, and you're like, oh shit. oh shit, and then you're like looking around, hitting chairs and stuff. That whole the mimics, the fact that they could mimic pretty much anything in the environment is what actually made them scary. If they had a set number of like 5 or even 8 different items, they wouldn't have been scary. But like since it's literally everything, they're actually kind of scary, and I definitely.
It makes me wonder like how much time they put into making that AI work the way it did. Like that's a documentary I'd genuinely be interested in checking out.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I don't think they can't just pull from a pool. I'll bet you each like tile set or each room has a set pool of items that they appear as, and maybe it's judged on whether or not it's on a table or on the floor or something. I don't know how they did it, but that algorithm that they used works real good.
It's true. That's true. It do.
All right, what about what's your number 4 pick, or what's a pick that highlight?
Oh man, it's really tough because like I know my first two are, but one of them I'm gonna say for last because we're always gonna talk about that game at length. I'm sure you know what it is.
Yeah, of course.
But you know what? I think the game I probably picked that I know you haven't played is probably Near Automata. Honestly,
Okay.
like I I really enjoyed the original Near with
Okay.
the it was Near Gestalt. It was the Americanized version where it was the father and daughter story. And
Oh,
but
I played
I
that. All
never
right.
played the Dragon Guard games because I didn't have a PS2 to actually play those. And
Sure.
I only was able to play Near one at a friend's house. And I don't I didn't expect Near Automata to be as good as it actually was, comparatively. I mean, from the combat to the story to the questions the game makes you ask. I mean, the philosophical influences and existentialism that the game invokes in you fucking stuck with me. I mean, even to this day, I still think about the game, and I platinumed that thing. I did everything I could possibly do in it. I mean, the story throws you through a loop. It's way more deep than people tend to think because they see a sexy robot and go, oh, that's what it is. It's fucking weed bait. It's like no, the combat's deep and in depth. The music is amazing. I mean, holy shit! I have an entire Spotify playlist dedicated just to Nier's music. And
Nice.
I mean, the characters, everything about it is just amazing. It's so hard to put into words right now because it's been so long since I've actually played it, so it's not that fresh in my mind. But
Right.
I do think it's a game that everyone should at least play once.
It's one of those games that I have always wanted to play, but it's again, I feel like it has the same sort of like symptoms that Prey does, right? Where it just sort of slips under the radar. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll spend like a day, be like, yeah, I'll buy that. That looks good, and then I'll just completely blank it. I'll just forget about it a little bit later, even though I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games. 'Cause I remember like people didn't even know it was coming out until it came out. Like that was the thing. Like people were like, wait, there's a new Nier game. Like it was not advertised well at all. But God, it really is definitely one of the best games of this generation, I'd say. I mean, whether or not you're into that sort of game, it's one of those games that actually stick with you, you know?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it looks good, and if I'm not mistaken, like in the game, there's like varying different types of combat or gameplay, right? Like it's not just
Yeah.
one thing for the whole game.
Yeah, so like it's best showcased in the openings in the first mission where you're approaching the facility and you're at a top down like sort of like a Galaga type mission combat. Then it
Okay.
turns into a mech and you start doing a shoot 'em up style section. Then you get into sideways 2D combat to get into 3D combat. It varies up its presentation of the combat in a very interesting and well way that keeps it fresh throughout as you play the game. Hell, when you get to the second route where you're playing as a second character, he plays completely differently compared to 2B. Like it's a completely different game. Like his whole thing, like he has attack combat moves and everything, but his major thing is he hacks enemies, and you
Okay.
go into their mind and do a random mini game. That's complete. It could be Snake. It could be Space Invaders, like stuff like that,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it completely turns it on its head.
Yeah, that seems really cool. I remember seeing some screenshots of that. the top down into the mech. I think that explains it the best. You go from top down action into mech straight up action. That's like where else does that happen?
Exactly. It's yeah, like everyone should play it. I mean, hell, I think it's on sale right now actually. The Game of the Yorha edition, which comes with all the DLCs.
All right, well,
You want to get into your second one?
yeah, I suppose I'll go into my second one. And now my other three are not gonna shock the pants off anybody, but that's okay. They're still my top ones of the year. And my number three here is gonna be, or like if I'm counting down from, my number three is gonna be God of War. Um, God of War, I was a huge fan of all the original games. I didn't get a chance to play the PSP ones, but aside from them, I had multi-played all of them as I was growing up. I still remember the first time that my dad saw me playing God of War 1. He like sat down and like for a second was like, "Wow, they've really stepped it up since Pong." And I was like, "Yes, Dad, they have." And anyway, so God of War the new one, I was wary going in. I think everyone
Yeah.
First of all, you don't have Blades of Chaos, right? Supposedly. And after that, after you don't have Blades of Chaos, you also have to escort a child throughout the entire God of War game. I was going in with like, oh, come on, don't make it like that. Oh, that sounds awful. I don't want to play that. Like I just did not have. I knew it was going to be good, right? But when I actually got to play it, the combat was excellent. It was hard and it was visceral. And I think one of the biggest things about the combat that a lot of people kind of ignore is the fact that enemies, even if you can't see them, even if you're not in their line of sight, they can still hit you, which is something that very rarely happens, especially in third-person action games. A lot of the times, like in Assassin's Creed, an enemy will wait while, like, if you can't see them or you're not facing them, they'll wait until his buddies are dead in front of you. Not so with God of War. Every enemy will try and attack you all the time, and that makes combat a lot more interesting and tactical and especially and difficult. So I love that part of it. The new axe was incredible. The whole throwing mechanic was amazing. I still use that to this day. And I love the story. I thought the story was well made. It was a simple story, a simple premise, just trying to take his wife's ashes to the highest mountain in the land, and it gets complicated and more complicated. But at the end of the day, this single through line of that, this is what their goal is, going through the whole story really pulled you through it, and I think that was great. And I think another big thing was that it had like an open world aspect that wasn't necessary, but the aspect that was there I really enjoyed. It had boss fights that were incredible. The Valkyries are still some of the best boss fights that any game has come out this generation with, and I just enjoyed my entire time with that game. So I definitely think and believe that God of War is my third top 10.
I can see that. Yeah, like you said, a lot of us were wary. No more than me, as you remember. I was super worried about that game coming out because at
Right,
that point they barely showed anything in terms of like what we'd be doing. But
right.
I was definitely pleasantly surprised by what God of War ended up being, and was really happy with what they did, with the direction they went, with the like you said, the narrative, the characters, especially Atreus, man. Like it's always worrying to have a child character accompany your basically flagship character,
Right,
because there are games that pull it off. There are games that don't. And
right.
I was really worried that Atreus would have been annoying, but he ended up being one of my favorite parts of the entire game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the tray. In fact, I liked every part of it, which is again something I didn't expect because one of the big things that they did throughout that game was at the beginning, Atreus is pretty wary, right? He doesn't do a lot of things. He doesn't kind of engage in combat except for an occasional arrow. And again, the nice thing too is that you're directing.
Yeah, he's
Like you
constantly looking to his
control his
father.
attacks, which is really nice. But by like halfway through the game, you like he will grab people like long enough that you can slap your axe into their forehead as hard as you can. And like he'll be diving over people, shooting arrows into them while you're doing special attacks. Like I really liked the natural progression that they didn't really talk about. Like they didn't have to have like a dialogue. It was like, wow, your jump over that guy with that arrow in his head really was really good. You felt his actual progression throughout the story.
Yeah, it was
Um,
it was a good case of show don't tell. Like
and
I mean, hell, the part when he and Kratos are sort of lock butting heads. and in combat he starts ignoring your commands.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I
Like,
think that in particular, like that was part of the story, right? Like the story was that he was, being honestly a little bitch, and but like he grows past that, and during that moment, like it showed in the gameplay what was happening in the story, and I think their connection from gameplay to story and to the narrative in that game was really strong. I think they had the that is like a game that is a perfect example of good. Like if a game doesn't have good game direction, then you end up with a game like Anthem,
oh,
unfocused,
oh,
individual parts that are okay, but everything combined just sucks. And but it's exactly the opposite with God of War. The game had a clear direction, had a clear voice when it was trying to tell its story and do its gameplay, and it was just all the stronger. So I can't commend that game, especially with the direction in general.
yeah, I think I have to agree. Like, even though it's not on my list, that there are a couple games I think that edge it out, but I can definitely say it definitely deserves to be in one of the best games of the
Right.
generation for sure. Like, it's not overhyped to an extent. Like, I mean, let's be honest, everything is overhyped to some extent, but like there comes a point where it's like, even if it's overhyped, what's still here is still incredible.
Right. And there was a little bit of talk about that when God of War got released and had all the 10 out of 10 scores. And I gave it a 10 out of 10 score on my blog. But the truth is that, like, I can't let everyone else's opinion affect my opinion of what it is. And I, I believe that that's the correct score for that game. And no, it's not perfect. And again, it's down to everyone else's individual scoring systems and how they feel about it. But I don't feel like taking in like all of that hype that happened there, because it got a ton of hype, and like letting that affect your own gameplay experience is a good way to go about that. Despite the fact that I don't think God of War is the best game of the generation. I think it'll be one of the defining titles for the PS4, but I don't think it's the defining. I don't think it's above where it should be, but what is there is so solid and so what I wanted to play that I can't help but to give it one of my 10.
Yeah. If I have like one thing I hope they fix with the sequel is literally just pull the camera back a little bit more in combat. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are some moments in that game where it's like, I literally can't see like half the enemies that are attacking me, and because there's
Yeah.
the camera so close, I can't see the indicator that's telling me, hey, you're about to get hit from behind.
Yeah. I think that
Also, fuck the crows.
wouldn't be a bad thing to do. Again, I didn't mind that much because I my brain was like, all right, that's just more tactics. I need to back up more so I can see everybody. But I can definitely see, especially I think the one moment that like perfectly encapsulates that is, do you remember the moment at the very beginning of the game where or not at the very beginning, but pretty close to the beginning, where you jump down and there's a bunch of the stone Draugr, and then
I
like a
was
couple
thinking
of them
about
start
that. Yeah,
yeah, that scene is the first scene where I started to feel that exact kind of feeling. And eventually I kind of got past that and I was trying to get behind people, but you definitely feel it in some moments where you're like, oh gosh, maybe if the indicators when somebody's about to attack you were a little bit brighter or something like that, that might help too. But I'm not sure exactly. I know exactly the you're talking about though.
yeah, because I think the problem is that in some areas, the way the indicator is colored with the lighting of the area can make it sort of hidden at times, which can be a problem, especially when you're playing on Gimme God of War. Which I will say too, I was surprised how actually fair Give Me God of War difficulty actually was. Like, it's hard as shit, but I never felt like I was cheated playing it. Similar to Doom 2016 and to some extent Doom Eternal. Like, I never
Right,
felt like the game was just being unfair to me.
right, right. And I also appreciate that the developers added that new plus mode right after, like just for free, just after launch. Like I hope that that's part of the next game, but I'm glad that it was added at least a little bit later. With with like actual free skins and cosmetics that you can earn only in Plus. I think
Yeah,
that's
that was a
definitely a
good
good
move.
addition. That. All right, so enough about God of War here. What about yours? What's your next game on the tens of the generation?
So I think I'm gonna have to go with Death Stranding. Honestly,
Really intriguing.
like
Okay.
Death Stranding is one of my biggest surprises of this generation and of last year.
Okay.
Because I'm not usually too keen on walking sims, right? Like, I mean, I like Journey, I like No Man's Sky, but that genre is not my number one go-to, and it might even be my
No.
third. But what Kojima did with that game, from its narrative to the characters to the story to even the gameplay loop. I mean, for the majority of the game, you're just delivering packages from one area to another, but it's so much more than that. You have to you have to think tactically. Okay, I'm going to this facility in the hills, so I'm going to need a lot of ropes to get down, a lot of ladders to climb up. But I'm also there's also might be BTs and timefall in the area, so I better make sure I bring extra protective gear or even weapons to defend myself if I get into a fight with the BTs. And I just the prospect of walking can be an arduous task because you have to look at your layout, look at the area ahead of you, and think, okay, I can use my machine scan to see which area is safe to walk on, which will cause more damage to my stamina, which will cause me to lose my balance, and just transporting packages alone, each package is different. Like transporting a pizza, you have to hold it upright, because if you
Yeah.
tilt it on your back, it'll start to slide and damage the pizza. If you're
Right. Right.
delivering a corpse to the incineration, it will sway, causing you to constantly have to readjust your position and readjust your balance, especially when climbing up.
Well, I think it's interesting you mentioned that because I feel like it's not. I wouldn't really call Death Stranding necessarily a walking sim because the way you're talking about how you have to navigate and how you have to think about the different things that you have on your back and how you're doing it, it reminds me of the same way that I was talking about God of War's combat, where I have to back off and I have to think about who's in front of me and I got to do that kind of thing. And ready for this hot take? That's kind of like how Death Stranding is just like God of War. No, but
I
no, but
can't believe it.
my point is that the basic gameplay of the games of both these games requires thought and precision, and you have to actually do these things correctly to be successful. And I think that that's a valuable part. And I think us as gamers, we appreciate that when we.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, like, even just as doing something as simple as this game makes delivering packages the most satisfying I've experiences I've had in a game. I mean, especially like as you start progressing through the game, you're unlocking new items. You can start building bridges, you can start constructing roads, you can start building timefall shelters that other people can get to and use, and they can send you likes that'll actually increase your porter level. It, it
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's funny because when Kojima said he was inventing a new type of genre, the Strand genre, he made it under the assumption of he wants people to feel connected more than they have in any other games. And I'm gonna be honest, I've never felt more connected to other players than I have playing this game.
Yeah.
Like I can't
Yeah.
tell you the amount of times just when I thought that, oh man, I'm gonna fall off this cliff or I'm not gonna be able to make out there without damaging the thing, and I out of the corner of my eye, there's something a player put, be it a ladder or a rope or a drawbridge, and just them being there helped me get through it.
Right.
And
Right.
this isn't even
Well.
talking about the story. I mean, the story is phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
so well done. It's so well acted with killer roles like Mads Mikkelsen and Norman Reedus and Lindsay Wagner. Like everyone in casting that does a phenomenal job of doing their roles, and it's that game's gonna stick with me. Like I think about the games this generation that stuck with me, the games that I'm always thinking about,
Right.
and yeah, Death Stranding just fits that criteria. I may not be able to recommend it to everyone, but I will say it's definitely one of the best damn games I've ever played.
Yeah, and I think that'll definitely knock it into this tier. I definitely am interested in playing it. I've always been. I'm hoping to have the opportunity for PS5 comes out, or maybe even on PS5. Who knows? But yeah, it's,
So,
all right.
not really much more to say about that because I can't talk anything in depth, otherwise I'll spoil it, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
No, I
So let's
agree.
move
Yeah,
on to your third game of the generation.
you got it. So I would classify this as my number two. This one is, if anyone who knows me, this is gonna be pretty obvious. But it's Bloodborne. Bloodborne, and I'm gonna include the DLC in this conversation. So Bloodborne, as an individual title when it came out, was excellent. I think with the DLC, took it over the top. I've always been a huge fan of the Souls game, and I think it was practically perfected in Bloodborne. The faster combat, the switchable weapon, incredible, incredible setting. The setting of like almost Victorian, but then as you go through the game, it switches even further into like cosmic horror, and it's just a terrific example of world building without having a major story driving it. Like the world of Bloodborne is something that sticks with everyone who plays it. The combat is fast, ferocious. The addition of having your health be able to be leached back from enemy if you've gotten hit, if you hit them while you've got that damage on you, is an incredible addition. It keeps combat aggressive, and fun, and honestly, again, as I said, I think it's probably the best example of the Souls genre to date. I think Dark Souls 1 is the last major leap in that, but since then, I think Bloodborne really takes it to another level. Um, and honestly, the DLC was just incredible. Like every aspect of the game's presentation was just elevated in the DLC. The music from the DLC is still phenomenal. The track of Ludwig the Accursed at like 4 minutes is the best boss music I've ever heard in any video game ever, bar none. And it is, and the bosses are hard and fun. And the biggest thing that I think that the DLC in particular added to the base game, which was already phenomenal, but the biggest thing was build diversity. After you beat Vicar Amelia, which is about 4 to 10 hours, depending on how fast you are at the into the game, you now have access to at least 6 or 7 other weapons without getting past the first boss. And I think that that's incredible. So if you wanted to go make a sprint and go get the beast cleaver or the beast cutter, or you wanted to go get the bow from Simon in there, like there are so many more build options now with that DLC coming out. And Arcane got a huge thing with the final boss of that DLC giving you literal cauliflower head where you can become a tentacle master and just start blowing people up with magic, which is just sweet. So yeah, Bloodborne definitely is going to be my number 2 on the generation here.
Yeah, I totally get what you're coming from. Definitely, Bloodborne is definitely one of the biggest, I would say, surprises of this generation. Especially it came out so early. It was like what, 2015? Or was it
Yeah,
2014?
something. It was like, I think it was like a year and a half after the PS4 launched, because PS4 didn't really have a lot of great individual titles until Bloodborne.
I want to say it came out in the same year as Infamous Second Son, which came out in 2014. So because
Yeah, I think it was about a year later. Yeah.
2015, yeah, because Witcher came out in 2016, correct? Or was it 2015?
No, it
I'm
was the
always
same year. It was the same year.
same year.
But
Holy
it was the
shit!
same year, but it was much later in the year. The reason I know that is because the Game Awards that year, it was Game of the Year, Bloodborne versus Witcher, and I was like, no. So that is how I remember that.
Yeah, like Bloodborne. Yeah, I think that was one of the first games this gen that I actually platinumed. Like it was hard as no, you know what? No, sorry, that was the second game because the first game I did was Infamous Second Son. So that game was super easy to plat. But Bloodborne is definitely one of my yeah. The only issue I think I have with it was just the fact that it's typical Dark Souls issues of I want a PvP of my friend. Oh, we can only go to certain areas where the boss hasn't been killed. Oh, great, we can't find each other.
Yeah.
But apart from that, yeah, like I said, everything from the combat to the build variety to the to the aesthetic is just top tier. They did such a
Yeah,
good job.
it is, and it's funny how many times I hear the conversation is like, I never liked Dark Souls, but I love Bloodborne. I mean, how many times have you heard that conversation on the internet where somebody never liked any of the Souls games, never played them, they played Bloodborne and they loved it? I mean, I think that that's, I don't know why necessarily it casts such a wider net, but I think part of it is the fact that, again, the game direction of that game is so crisp and clear, where it has like a defined identity, and it takes you on a crazy ride. And I don't know. Again, as I said, Bloodborne is definitely one of the top games. It's just, I think everything about it's right. Like again, yeah, I think you hit the major pain point, which is the fact that PvPing with your friends is very hard. Um, you can do it again, with the stones and the bells and all that stuff, but it is kind of annoying, and I do wish they had a system like in Dark Souls 3 where there was literally an arena where you just put in a password.
An arena that we never use, by the way.
No, we don't. We just summon each other there. It works good there. The bell system in Bloodborne is probably the one kind of weak point. Um, but even with that weak point, again, I think everything else about the game would definitely drives that higher for me. And
Oh
even the
yeah,
chalice dungeons, I think there's a subsection of the people on the internet that literally they're still digging into the chalice dungeons.
that's
I
insane
think
to me.
like 6 months ago they finally found like the last technical dungeon or something like that. It's crazy. But anyway, the Bloodborne again will definitely be on that list for.
All
So what
right.
about you? What's your next
So
title?
my last two games are games we both played, but I've given this. I'm gonna give this a lot of thought over the course of this podcast recording so far, and honestly, I think I'm gonna have to go with No Man's Sky
Wow. Okay.
because
That's that's a left field.
that game was one of the worst launches ever made. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone hated it. I waited in line at my local GameStop. There was a huge line. I want to say maybe 50 people to get that game. I streamed it, did all that, and dropped the game like 12 hours in because there was just nothing.
Yeah.
But over the course of the years, they just kept working from the Foundations update to the next update to the most recent one, Origins. It's just they did the story behind that game's turn alone, I would say, is worthy of it in my book. But there's just so much more than that. Like I love space stuff. I love like my favorite genres behind is sci-fi and fantasy. And my one of my favorite shows growing up was Star Trek TNG.
Okay.
And no game gave me the best feeling of exploring the cosmos and discovering new planets and new species and new animals more than No Man's Sky did. And with the recent update that adds so much variety to it, I mean, for an indie dev to go so above and beyond, because keep in mind, all these updates were free.
Right.
There's no
Right. That's the key there.
microtransactions.
Yeah.
There's no like there's free crossplay. You have like it's
Yeah. It's
definitely
crazy.
it's one of the like no matter what you think of it, they pulled it back, and I would say that alone warrants it being in my top four games generation. I'm never gonna forget it. I'm still gonna be
Yeah.
playing like I'm sure 5 years from now even I'm gonna load it up every now and then
Yeah.
just to explore the cosmos.
Well, I think that yeah, I agree with the turnaround for sure. But like, it's funny because like everyone like I again I also bought it at launch and I really enjoyed No Man's Sky like when it was going out. But again, around that 15 to 20 hour mark, you just realize there's not much to do. Like I enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the going to different planets and finding different stuff. I have enjoyed the grind to some extent where I was just grinding to get new backpack levels, new levels for my little pistol thing. But, all of that kind of faded after about 15 to 20 hours where I was like, meh, I don't really need this anymore. And it's just amazing to watch the progression of that, though, where you kind of gave up on it. Like the first update came out, nobody cares. The second update comes out, people are like, well, they're still doing it. Well, I mean, good for them, but no, I'm not getting back on. By the time the third update came out, which was like the multiplayer one, the literal one where you can play with your friends, you start to be like, wow, they're not giving up. This is actually a game that's going to continue. And I
Yep.
think that the fact that they've been so consistent with putting out these releases of like sizable content, right? Like base building, mech building, brand new
Underwater
biomes.
bases.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of this, the freighters, the whole freighter update, all this kind of stuff that's actually substantial, that's actually worth time, things that they might have been able to even monetize, but they decided not to. What is really where that game kind of gets to the next level is just the fact that it had so many of these updates for free and it just gave you hope in the developer, right? Like no one wanted to jump back in case they dropped it, but now none of us are like, nah, they're just never gonna drop it. Like I believe that this game is gonna go on for a while, so I think it's definitely a worthy spot on there. At least not only for the story, or I mean like the story of the whole game development and everything like that, but for what they've accomplished in the years after.
Definitely. Like I said, like it may not be on a lot of people's list, but I think it deserves to be on at least one, which is why I think yeah, it deserves to be here.
Sure.
They did so much to pull that game around, and by God, they fucking did it. Like especially from like they grew from what a team of 12 to a team of 24, and even made a side game called The Last Campfire, which I
Yeah,
actually might pick up because apparently they're going to be donating the proceedings for that game to charity.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I was interested in that already. I like the aesthetic, but I haven't. All right, man. Well, before we get into the final one, which we're both going to talk about simultaneously,
Because we know
why
what it
don't we
is.
why don't we talk about some of your runners up? Like I told you some of my runners up. What were some of the ones you're considering for the list but didn't make the cut due to, whatever?
So the two right off the bat I was definitely considering was Devil May Cry 5 and Doom Eternal. Devil May Cry 5 was definitely everything I wanted out of a Devil May Cry sequel, and like I I didn't know what to expect when they first announced it, but he like Itsuno said, it exceeded my expectations, so to speak. But I think like the games on and the other game before I get into that was well, yeah, Doom Eternal. Once again, stellar game, stellar shooter, but they both had a couple things that kind of held it back. I mean, for Doom, I think Eternal the level design wasn't as strong as the first one, and I think the battle mode was a missed opportunity.
Sure.
And in regards to Devil May Cry 5, like I said, I think it definitely is one of my top games generation, but top four, I feel like it needs to make the games involved need to make some sort of impact, at least for me. Like have some impact that sticks with me,
Sure.
whether it be on a philosophical level or on a personal level.
Right.
And both of those games, while 10 out of 10s in their own right, they just couldn't make the cut with the others I talked about because either the three games talking so far, Near Automata, Death Stranding, and No Man's Sky, each of them gave me a vastly different experience that I will literally never forget for as long as I live.
Right.
Like everything about those three games made me question about myself as a person as well as what type just I'm just rambling, but
No, you're good. Like I understand. Like you get games that like you didn't expect to have some sort of change in you, but like they somehow do. Like it's pretty rare for that to happen to me, but I remember that same kind of feeling. The first time I read Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, I literally sat down for like an hour and a half afterward, just being like, "Holy!"
yeah, I
Right?
did the same with Brave New World when I read that in high school.
Right. Yeah. Like it's just some games have that like impact on you. Even for me for video games, like despite the fact that it had some issues, the BioShock Infinite, that ending, hit me really like because BioShock's my favorite game of all time, bar none. And and I just the ending of BioShock Infinite hit me in a very specific way. It's not necessarily the same feeling that everyone has, but that I will always remember when first going through that and playing that ending. I was just like, oh, my mind is like just totally gone. So, no, I completely understand. And some of these, some games really do have that effect on you. That's personal, but not maybe not like life altering, but like personal in a way that other games.
Yeah, exactly. But before we move on, real quick, what are your thoughts on the rumored new Bioshock game that 2K is doing or
Uh, you know,
Take Two's doing
I
without
have
Ken
not heard very
Levine?
much about that. I am very excited for any new Bioshock title, unless they tell me it's like Battle Royale or something stupid.
I feel like it
Like,
will be because Ken Levine's not working on it, so I say just throw it in the trash.
well, we'll have to see. Like again, I don't. I'm more than happy to see a new version of Bioshock. If someone is going to bring it back or is going to have their own spin on it, that's fine.
I
But
think the
again,
biggest
it's the
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
the spirit of it.
I think
I
the
don't want
biggest
them to do.
issue is going to be like the Bioshock's all the Bioshock's biggest strengths were its setting. In fact, I'd say that was the biggest proprietary of what made those games so special is the setting of Rapture and the setting of Columbia. And I don't know where they can go next.
Yeah.
That's unconventional because they can't do space because
Well,
Prey already
it's
did. Prey's basically that.
right. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love Prey. But like, I think that while I believe that the setting is very important and stuff, but it's not just the setting. You know, settings can come and go. It's really the philosophical behind them. Like, so Rapture was created in this, you know, alternate universe where somebody wanted to take capital Ayn Rand philosophy the absolute max. And they what they did is they took that philosophy and then they built a setting around it that would fit it. And I think that that's the important part. Same thing with Columbia. They took this hyper, you know, almost religious version of the founding fathers, and then they upped it to 10 and found a, you know, fantasy, but like a setting that makes sense for that philosophy. So I think hopefully if these new developers are anything worth their salt, they'll they'll decide on a philosophy that's interesting to explore more so than they'll try and find a new cool location. Because if they find the philosophy and they find the story and the backbone of what creates a good setting, then they'll be able to come up with a setting that fits that. But again, you know, the new developers, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. That's my biggest worry because I think like Ken Levine is what made those games good. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's why like the story of 2 was the weakest one because Ken Levine didn't work on that one, or at least I don't think he had any major put in input into the story if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. But
Well, either way, I suppose we should move on to the obvious elephant in the room.
yeah, it's a
Uh,
big elephant, I tell you what.
yeah, it's. I think it's our greatest game of the generation. Most of our friends' greatest game of the generation. And I haven't seen other lists from other people, but I would suspect that it's going to be on a lot of lists for the greatest game of the generation. And it's hard
Every
to dispute.
every single list I've seen has included this game so far.
Yeah, it's impossible when you're talking about the greatest game of the generation to not talk about the um.
Sorry, one more
Let me.
time. You are cut out.
Oh, no problem. It's The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt.
Damn right.
100%. Yeah. So this is definitely the game. I think probably the greatest game of the generation, and it's due to a lot of different factors. Again, for me personally, the things that struck me the most is the story. I mean, the story in The Witcher 3, once it gets going, like again, it takes a while to get there, and I understand that, but it's it's a perfect example of the phrase "worth the wait." Once you get through, like, and even all the side stories, just the everything about the setting, the stories, the atmosphere, the everything part of that game's like lore and fiction just like perfectly melds into a completely believable, completely immersive experience that I have not had in another like RPG or video game for a very, very, very long. I can't actually. So yeah, I think for me, the first thing I'm going to start mentioning is just the story. Geralt is a terrific character. Ciri was a great addition. Meeting Yennefer in the video games for the first time was amazing. Everyone lived up to their names. Everyone was complex. Even little characters. The Baron is still one of the best video game characters ever written,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's
for
only in the
sure.
first fifth of the video game. Like that's crazy, you know. So I just think that they really crushed that. Made like, and this is a game that talks a lot, right? Like you're in dialogue a lot, and never have I been like, I'm gonna skip that dialogue. I played through the game 3 times, and I don't think I've skipped a dialogue in that entire video game. So I mean, that's just mind blowing in this day and age.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. Like the story is just it's really well crafted and like I said, the perfect definition of a slow burn. Like while it does take a while to get going, you eventually start making rounds. Things start slowly unraveling. Things start picking up, and it just ends up. You get to a point where you're like, Jesus Christ. I mean, even it's not even just the main story. Side quests in this
Yeah.
game are absurd. I still think about the Pan side quest. You remember the Pan side quest, right?
Yeah, of course.
Old lady loses her pan. Some guy stole it. She wants it back because it's a family. I think it was like a memento of her late husband, if I remember
Something
right.
like that. Yeah.
And you go into the house where she supposedly saw the guy running. You find out that he didn't want the pan itself. He wanted the soot off the pan to make ink to write a letter. And it's that whole side quest just offered something. It's like Jesus Christ, this is just something I could have ignored.
Yeah, and it takes like the whole side quest is like 3 minutes, but in that 3 minutes, they still have a better story than Anthem.
That's because there was a story in that side quest.
Yeah, I mean honestly, like it's just crazy the amount of detail. Like, and that's in every side quest too. Every hunt, every side quest. Like, unless you're doing like the like side objectives or whatever, where you're not doing like an
Go
actual
get Gwent
like
cards,
quest.
which I did every single one of.
Oh my god, let's talk about Gwent for a second. And how much of my life is now gone because of it. I,
Yeah.
I swear to God, I collected every Gwent card. I think I was once I got the quest that was like Gwent, right? There's a quest in the game that's like Gwent. I went around to every single inn, every single person I could talk to, and I beat them all. I hunted down. I did the Baron quest, like everybody, to get those Gwent cards so I could play in that Gwent tournament and actually. And I don't regret it. It was Gwent is awesome.
Dude, it's so good that when I got the game again on PC and I could mod it, I literally, the first mod I downloaded was the mod that turned every combat encounter into a Gwent battle. But granted, I eventually had to turn off because we're literally in the game, but it gets really long. But, like,
I just imagine you like walking down the beach and there's like a group of bandits and you're coming up to them with armed swords and they pull out their swords and they're like, "You want to fight?" You're just like, "No, I want to Gwent." And they're like, "Let's do it." And you Gwent them. I just the immersion there is hilarious.
like, yeah, Gwent was so popular, it got its own fucking game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, granted, I wish I played more of, but I mean, they kind of changed things around to make it work around PvP, which kind of disappointed me because I like the way Gwen played in the game. But I understand because let's be honest, Gwen's kind of broken when you actually start getting into
Oh,
it in the game.
you're
Like
totally
it,
overpowered. It's so stupid when you just drop Siri, then you drop Geralt, and then you drop like all the spy cards. You just can't.
oh man, yeah, fucking Gwen. And I guess the last thing we could talk about is just the world design and combat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the combat in general isn't the most groundbreaking combat in the world, right? And in fact, on my first playthrough of The Witcher, I played on normal difficulty, right? And it was fun. I enjoyed getting different like stuff, and it was good enough to get me through the game. Um, but I didn't really get to experience the actual combat of that game or the actual like engagement until I played it on hard. Once you play it on hard, you're forced to use like things like the bombs. You're forced to start using decoction,
Oh
start using
yeah.
the potions and stuff. And by the time I was like slathering my sword in like some oil, then drinking a bunch of stuff that made me look like a villain on The Walking Dead, and then I was like, and then I was using different, signs and combos to go into combat. Oh, it opened up immensely, and it's one of the most robust combat systems there
Oh
is.
yeah. I want to be clear too to anyone who's listening who somehow hasn't played The Witcher. Play it on either on either hard or very hard because you're not going to get the full extent of what we're talking about in terms of the combat complexity unless you're playing on those two difficulties. Normal and easy just well too easy to actually allow you to utilize your full array of in your arsenal.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I ardently recommend hard at the baseline. Very hard is very hard, so if you're into that, then that's cool. Start it on hard, and you're gonna be able to like the first few levels from like levels 1 to 10 are gonna be pretty hard for you. They're gonna be pretty tough. By that time, you're gonna have enough skills built up, and you're gonna have enough of the items that you're gonna start mixing and matching how you're gonna play the game. And I think that diversity and how you can build your character is just amazing with that particular game. I've done builds where I did the freezing Ard build from the DLC, hilarious and awesome.
Oh
I did
yeah,
that is great. I
that was the
did
first one I did.
yeah, the full green tree, the alchemist tree. I did that full tree, and that was amazing. Like there are many different ways to play that game, and they're all satisfying.
And then we get into just the world design itself, like the area of Novigrad and Velen and Skellige are just like the art direction is beautiful. I mean, each area you go feels distinct and different. And it even boils down to the NPCs you encounter. Like you can tell, like yeah, these people live here. They're not just it doesn't feel like I'm not going to see the same, or at least from what I remember, if I played the game like you like 3 times. You're not
Right.
going to see the same NPCs in Skellige that you would in Novigrad or in Velen.
No, you're right. Yeah. No, their
And,
clothing changes. Everything changes. The little details in The Witcher are what make everything tick. Like the little details, like you were saying, like no one's going to be wearing the same clothes if they live in Skellige or if they live in Novigrad. Um, little details like if it's raining outside, everyone will seek indoor shelter.
yep,
That's crazy. Every time that like just all those kind
I
of
think
details add up.
I think the only other game I've seen do that was Red Dead Redemption 2. I think that's
Oh
the
yeah,
only other game I've seen do that.
yeah. I think it's just impressive, and it makes the world feel more
Oh
alive.
wait,
So
no, there's one more. Mafia Definitive Edition. When it's raining in game, characters will be rushing to get inside, or holding their hand or whatever, even a newspaper over their head.
yeah, and it's those little things that really make a game pop. Like we've all played open world games. Like we've all played them through them. And
I played every
let's
single
say,
Assassin's Creed game, literally
yeah,
every
let's say
single
nine
one.
times. Let's say 9 times out of 10, right? Like all the people are in the screen for one purpose, and that's to fill the screen. Their only purpose is to make the world feel like it has people. But that never works because you just know that they're nobodies. They don't mean
Yeah, at most they are window dressing.
exactly. And so I think that having those little details that make these people feel alive
Or
and
in
they
some
have
cases,
jobs and they're
target
going places.
practice.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, yes. uh, but yeah, that definitely. I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about with the like. It's funny if we had this entire episode to talk about the things that we loved about The Witcher, it still wouldn't be long enough
Oh
because
yeah, no, look,
we
we
could
can.
literally just keep talking.
Yeah, especially because like we played it so many times, so we are vastly intimate with it. Like I still remember entire conversations from that game, like verbatim.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I still think that the quest line, the King's quest line, where you have to
Yeah.
decide like who the leader of the world is, basically,
Oh no, but
is
yeah, that's with the war. Oh,
with the
that
whole
quest
war.
line is. Mm.
So good. It's so good. Dijkstra is you know what? We're gonna keep talking and talking and talking. I could literally get on this boat and stay on it forever. So I guess let's try and focus here. Basically, I'm gonna end on The Witcher 3 by saying it is the greatest game of this generation in my eyes, bar none, because of literally every aspect you think about when you think about playing a game. So
I think I'm going to have to agree. It's definitely like one of my favorite games and one of my favorite fantasy like genres. Like The Witcher 3 made me go back and play the first two Witchers and read the books.
yeah,
Like
yeah. I'm halfway through the second book right now. I agree.
and like yeah, Witcher 1 is a mess to play, but I think that game's story is still worth experiencing as well. Like The Witcher is it's yeah, nothing more to say. It's definitely
Really
one of
good.
the best games of this generation. Definitely deserves to be
Absolutely.
played.
All right, so I know that we're close to signing off here, but before we sign off, I think we have to have the four dishonorable mentions generation.
Ooh, the
What are
four worst games?
the four worst games of the generation? And not necessarily literally the worst because I haven't played all the crappy indies on Steam, but I've got three of them off the top of my head, and I know you're going to agree with two of them.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and just get the two that we know out there right now. Anthem, Fallout 76, you failed us so hard.
Yo, don't get me started on fucking Anthem. All
uh,
I wanted as a kid was a good Iron Man flying game, and here it was, and they fucked it up so goddamn hard.
God, and they got all the flying right. They got the flying right, but that's like it. I don't
Marvel's
understand.
Avengers is better because it has the flying, but it has better combat. There, I said it.
Oh God, Anthem was a fucking mess. And I was one of those people that actually believed in that game, wanted to play it, and man, didn't pay off. Didn't
I
pay
got that
off.
game for free, and I still wanted a refund.
And Fallout 76, everyone knows the story behind that. That was an absolute mess on day one. 2, 3, day 100, day
Still to this
200,
day.
day 300. Yeah, it's again that game is a mess. There's no. It's you know what it's like. It's like No Man's Sky before it got good, with the developers trying to monetize it.
It is evolving, just backwards.
All right, so my third one that I want to mention as my dishonorable mention of the generation is Lords of the Fallen.
Yep.
Dear God, that game is
Yeah.
awful. I thank you for fixing it, Deck 13, with your next two games, The Surge and The Surge 2, which were actually really good. But uh, Lords of the Fallen was a cumbersome, unplayable mess that. And I love Souls games. Like, I'll play basically any Souls game. But that one sucked.
Oh
So,
yeah. The only one I'd say was worse is Mortal Shell, because I at least got further in Lords of Fallen than I did Mortal Shell. Mortal Shell was fucking awful.
oh, God. All right. All right, now for the fourth dishonorable mention, I can't think of one immediately. Do you have any
Mass
candidates?
Effect Andromeda,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was
because
easy.
that killed an entire franchise. It literally killed the Mass Effect franchise.
Yes, it did.
They
Ah, it
had
was
two
sad.
DLCs planned for that game and were planning to fix it and just abandoned it because how abysmal it sold and how poorly
Yeah,
it was received.
you know what's
Like
really
that.
funny about yeah, you know what's really funny about that game too is that like I played probably 10, 15 hours of that game, and while I was playing it, I didn't mind it, but it was so humdrum. It was so kind of boring comparatively to the other games. Like,
What's the phrase people say? A game could be a 10 out of 10. A game could be a 0 out of 10, but there's nothing worse than a 5 out of 10.
yeah, it inspired no emotion in it. Like, exactly like what you just said. If you something I'll definitely mention to everyone here is that if you guys want to watch the best summary of how to build a good game, doesn't matter if it's a board game, a card game, or a video game, I definitely recommend 20 Years, 20 Lessons from Mark Rosewater at MT, which is Magic the Gathering. He breaks it down in a perfect way, and he has that exact sentiment to say about this, where he says that we rate all of our cards throughout the entire company, and the worst score we can get is a 7 out of 10. We would prefer to have 2 out of 10s and 9 out of 10s, but we never want to see 7, because you know what that does? That inspires nobody. There's no emotion with that, and that's how I feel about Mass Effect.
Yeah, I beat that game. I want to be clear here. I fucking beat that game, and it is just every single thing is just middling and just like I mean, people like to make fun. Oh, huh, the faces are fucked up. Oh, look at Peavy, she's holding the gun backwards. Like, yeah, but that's just the surface of the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that the characters aren't interesting. We
Nope.
go to a new galaxy and it doesn't feel different. It
Not at all.
there's no mystery that grabs you. It
Nope.
the two best supporting casts, Vetra and I don't even remember the name of the Krogan, but they just remind you of their better counterparts in the original trilogy.
Yeah,
Because that's what they are.
it's literally like the soul was just leached out of Mass Effect, and they just put everything. All
It
they
is
constructed the pieces with no heart.
it is the most corporate, I think, RPG I think I've played.
Yeah.
Like just checks all the boxes, don't care, doesn't matter, who cares if it's not good. Like I don't give a damn about the writer twins. They are worthless. They
Yeah.
have no
I didn't
personality.
even
Like
remember that was their name.
my memory, dude, I can't remember shit I did yesterday, but I can remember names of awful fucking characters in awful video games. It's quite bizarre.
Oh man.
Like God, Mass Effect Andromeda was such a fucking mess. I was so excited for that game, man. I love Mass Effect. and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and the third
Yeah.
one gets shit on a lot, but it's still good. I mean, and the Citadel DLC is some of the best Mass Effect content out there for 3.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's like to go from that to this, it's like, man,
Come on. Yeah.
even Dragon
Uh,
Age Inquisition was better than this.
all right. I'll tell you what. I think we're approaching the end here. I
I think
think
that's
as a way
it.
to sign off and tell me if you agree with this, why don't we sign off every episode by just giving one recommendation for anything, movies, video games, books, something that you've done or watched, or something entertainment related that we've done recently that we think people should know about and we don't think a lot of people have known about that. What do you think about that as an ending?
I like that, but I think we should also add in plugging our stuff, like plug in your
Oh yeah,
blog
yeah,
or whatever, or your
of
live
course.
streams and vice versa. So if you want to take the helm, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. Again, as I was saying earlier, I've been playing Borderlands 3 DLC. It was great. But the thing I want to plug today, 100%, that's not my own, is Joe Abercrombie as a writer. If you like reading and you like kind of hard fantasy with really believable characters and epic fights and just amazing writing, I recommend Joe Abercrombie and all of his books. Please check that out if you get an opportunity. Again, my name's Travis. You can find me on beatthatboss.twitch.tv or twitch.tv/beatthatboss. You can also find me on my blog, which is beatthatboss.blogspot.com. I post irregularly, but whenever I do post, hopefully it's good. So check me out there, and that's it for me. You're up.
Well, I'm a crab named Heller. You can find me at a crab named Heller, as well as Heller Reviews as my secondary channel. What I want to plug is Hades. Go buy it. Go play it. Play Hades. What are you doing? Stop watching this podcast. Go play the fucking game. Do it. Do it. Do it. But no. Yeah. A crab named Heller is where I am. You can find our links to our respective stuff in the link below. I'll be this is a new channel. I'll be posting there semi-regularly, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. It depends on how long it takes me to get videos done. But apart from that, I guess that's it for me. Are you good?
I'm good. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
All right, thank you all, and have a good night.